Hi there, you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast, produced here in Sydney, Australia. My name's Matt Wakeling, and thank you so much for joining me. Now today, for episode number 80, we speak to Adam Miller. Now, Adam's a wonderful Australian guitar player. We first met Adam last year, just ahead of the Sydney Guitar Festival. Had him on the show for a brief interview, found out about his influences, which included Tommy Emmanuel and Charlie Hunter. Adam plays solo shows really in that style, so can play the bass, the chordal stuff, the melodies on top. Fantastic at all that polyphonic approach. Also is a great band player, and his new album, The Defining of Success, is a trio record with drums, bass, and Adam's own fantastic guitar playing. It was a lot of fun talking about the album and catching up with Adam. Now, before we get to that, I need to give a big shout out to all of you for listening in, because today is our second anniversary episode. We've been producing the podcast since April 2016. Our first guest was Michael Dolce. We've had many other guests since then, and it's been great fun speaking to some of the leading guitar players from Australia and all around the world. Luthiers, gear builders, documentary producers, you name it. We've talked to lots of really interesting guitar people, and it's been great. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. So whether you've been around for 2 years or you're relatively new to the show or somewhere in between, it's just great having listeners all over the place. So thank you for being on the journey with us. If you are new to the show, we've got 79 other episodes apart from this one, which you're welcome to check out through iTunes or Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio. So whether you're on iOS or Android or something else, it's easy to get a hold of these episodes. All right, we're going to move along. So here's my conversation with Adam Miller. Hope you enjoy it. Adam Miller, welcome back to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for having me back.
Mate, our pleasure. I was very excited to hear about your new record. So last time we spoke, just to back up a little bit though, I think we spoke, it must have been around June 2017, June or July, and
yep.
That was heading into the Sydney Guitar Festival.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was super cool. I got to catch your gig and meet you, which I loved after the gig with that gig with Joe Robinson and Michael Fix at Leadbelly.
Yeah, that was a huge night.
That was cool, man. Loved it.
Yeah.
And since then, you've been like non-stop. What's been?
Yeah, that's.
What's been going on since then?
Yeah, sorry, man. I'm just jumping in because it's still non-stop. It's basically been life the last 6 or 7 years, actually.
Yeah.
Just still basing myself in Australia, but doing as much around the world as I can means that it's a lot of time on planes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, constantly around. I think I was speaking to you in Japan on
That's
tour,
right.
and then since then it's been a couple of US tours, a lot of playing around Australia, and then getting an album out and mixed and mastered and happy with how it sounds and playing and into the world.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That is very cool. I see you're at NAMM earlier this year. Tell me about that.
Yeah, look, NAMM, I've got to be honest, for me these days is almost a little holiday. I actually don't know how many I've been to now. I went to my first winter NAMM show in 2010 for Cole Clark Guitars.
Yeah.
And then since then, it's sort of, there's been a little bit of business things, but now it's just this awesome time to hang out with all my friends from around the world, like the builders and musicians and sales guys, and yeah, like especially so many of the products that I am involved with now, like they're actually just really good friends first and foremost now. Like
that's really cool.
It's just awesome. They also make insane gear too. But it's really just a good hang, and I really am into gear and guitars, so it's nice to be able to wander around and play some things and check it out between the chaos that it is of the sound of 1,000 people playing guitar at once.
Yeah. Everyone I talk to goes there, they just go, it's crazy. And I always say, well, did you see anything cool? And they're like, nah, I've just been in my booth for 3 days. Just
definitely if you're working for a company, it's a totally different thing.
Sure.
My first time, I was pretty much stuck to the booth, and I was I think I got out for maybe 20 minutes each day to look around. But it's when you're free, as I am these days, of just to wander, and I have a few performances a day to get around to, but it's still not very stressful compared to those early days. But you definitely get to see a lot of things and just meet up with people. A lot of people get over the whole business side of it and the amount of guitar playing on, but I love it. It just sort of seems like, music's still alive and that sort of thing. And the fact where, there's so many people there in one place doing it and hanging out, because I think it's like 200,000 people go over the space of the
3 days.
4 days.
4 days, wow.
4 days. So I think that's attendance and the people actually working there as well.
Okay.
But it's so cool and it's all different, styles of music happening around. Like there's this weird mariachi metal band I've seen going around that play metal songs, but in a mariachi style with a proper mariachi outfit.
Oh,
and
cool.
It's just, it's an amazing place. And if anyone listening ever gets a chance to go, don't let someone that's bitter about it from going too many times talk you out of it. It is incredible.
That's awesome. I guess I should. My disclaimer is the people, like the guests on my show, I don't know if they're bitter, but they just say it's crazy. So maybe,
I think it's like a bit of both.
Yeah,
and I think like sometimes when I'm performing there, like sometimes it is a lot better from a distance than it is in real life. Like basically I'm playing at an insane volume. I still can barely hear myself because there's 25 other people with Marshall, quad boxes spaced at me, shredding as well. So it's, I just really like it still. So
that's great, man. Now we're gonna get to your new album, The Defining of Successful, which I'm loving the album. Really excited to talk about that. And I think that will lead us to some nerdy gear talk as well as composition. But who are some of the companies you're working with? So when you say hanging with these companies at NAMM, who
like
are they?
Some of my closest friends are like Two Rock Amplifiers.
Oh yeah, cool.
Nick Huber guitars.
Yeah.
At the NAMM show, there's a few others I've sort of do work some performance for, like D'Angelico and Seymour Duncan, who are all really great friends now.
Yeah, I saw you there. Cool. Saw the pictures.
And then and then a lot of the small builders. I've just always had a close relationship with a lot of. So the guys hand making acoustic guitars that build like 10, 12 a year.
Wow.
That sort of thing. So, a lot of them are really good friends, and any opportunity I can help to, get guitars into the hands of people that you can. Like, I can't buy them all, so. Yeah. But it's all that sort of stuff is very cool. To just there's a particular, like a young guy out of LA named Isaac Yang, who is just 30, which is pretty young for an acoustic guitar builder. He's developed like a huge reputation, but just makes these guitars that are a work of art.
Wow.
But you also want to scratch them to death because they play and sound so good. Yeah.
That's cool. I see you met a friend of our show's, Greg Mara, while you were over there.
Oh yeah, Greg and I go back a while. We have a mutual friend who's another guitar builder, actually, by the name of Frank Falbo, who has his own company called Falbo Guitars.
Yeah, I've heard.
Actually working on, he's working on the Tosin Abasi. I don't actually know how to say his name.
Oh, okay.
I've read it so many times. Do you know?
I assume that's how it goes. I don't know. I've never tried to pronounce it live. I always just
I've never had to say it. Same thing. So I just second guess myself. But he's making his guitars. But I met Greg through him. So
nice.
Yeah.
There you go. Small world.
It is.
Hey, as we speak, today's February No, it's not. It's April. Today's April the 8th, I think, in Australia at the moment. And
correct.
you're about to head off to the States tomorrow. So what's happening in the States? So playing wise, aside from NAMM, what are you building over there? Are there particular parts of the country?
I've just been touring pretty heavily there for 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
It's just trying to build things up and just get the name out as much as possible. At the moment, I'm predominantly doing solo guitar shows.
Yep.
I get to do the odd trio show and things over there, but it's predominantly solo guitar.
Okay.
And it's it's just amazing. Like the two things about the US for a musician are just the size of the place, just the amount of people in a concentrated area that all still speak English.
Yep.
And, you can, not that I've still been able to really coordinate it, but you can go an hour in any direction pretty much from where you are, and you're basically in a city as big as Newcastle, where I live.
Yeah.
So it's just a numbers game, and then just the fact sort of the world looks to it. So it's always an opportunity to catch up with press and promotional stuff and that sort of thing over there. I feel the need to talk about it, but it's like, it's not like the US is better than anywhere else, like Australia or anything else. Like any audience is an audience, and it's amazing. But the focus of the world sort of to there definitely makes it a regular destination, and also, the complications of actually being able to work there with visas and stuff mean that you've got to make the most of it while you've got them.
Yeah, sure.
That's been a big thing for me.
Yeah. I mean, the concentration of, like you said, focus on the guitar community, just from that continent alone is staggering. Especially what knocks me out, and it's just geography, but the landmass of Australia is not much different to the landmass of North America.
The continental US, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And yet, population-wise, it's just exponentially bigger.
Yeah, you don't realise till you just start driving sometimes, and you just realise that cities, you're not really travelling between cities.
Okay.
Like it's just one, they just all blur into one forever.
Yeah.
Especially, certain drives, it just happens. You're just like, oh wow, I'm not really in the middle of nowhere, which happens in Australia within 20 minutes of driving.
Yeah, I mean, even between Sydney, where I live, and Newcastle, where you live, it's not that far, but you feel like you are getting a fair look at the bush on your way there. Yeah.
You're in the middle of nowhere for quite a bulk of it, seemingly. So and that's sort of the biggest thing with over there, and just the focus of the media still. So it's definitely been fun journeying through. And one of the great thing about touring, especially for me at the moment, because I'm not huge. And it's not like I just go, I'm coming here to play and it all happens. Sometimes I just get random offers from people wanting to help out promote a concert, or even house concerts and that sort of thing. So it just puts me in areas I would never think to go. Like I have no idea, never heard of the place before, no idea what's there, but it's just awesome that it takes you there for a day, or two, which is pretty much how I'm used to traveling now. And I've pretty much worked out that my missions, if I've got an hour or two spare, is to try and find a decent coffee/espresso place. If people are listening overseas, because coffee is only espresso really in Australia, or a guitar store.
Okay.
And, if I can find one of those things, usually they're in a hip, cool area, and I find other stuff on the way.
Yeah, nice.
It's awesome. So that's, that's just become my touring / vacationing plan to check out places.
Yeah, nice.
Find coffee and guitar stores. And you'll find like-minded people as well, which is also good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what are some of your favourite spots for either of those two goals?
Guitar stores is terrifying.
Yeah.
There's definitely been some, pretty amazing finds over the years. One of the first ones, actually, because this is just an awesome story, my very first trip to the US by myself, sort of just as, mid-20s, just having a look around. I wasn't playing, really. But just sort of checking it all out, I went to Rudy's music shop in New York, which is a bit of an institution still, and was unfortunately the last store on the famous 48th Street where all the guitar stores were, Guitar Row, I think it was called, for a long time. And they had to close that store down recently, and they've moved in this other one. But just going in there and kind of, like, I'd seen that store in magazines, and I remember especially seeing it like in a making of a John Mayer album video.
Okay.
Where he went in one day to, try some guitars. So just being able to go in there and just hang out, and then, the guys in there were super welcoming and lovely. And so the story, I was talking to him about going to see Les Paul. Mm-hmm. Les was still alive and played every Monday in New York at the time. But I was staying, and I was staying in a hostel, and I had a Cole Clark with me, and I was really scared to leave it in my room ever. Like, I'd take it out with me everywhere. And I said, if I go to this club, will they let me in with a guitar? And they said, yeah, you'll be fine, because often people come in to get guitars signed. Okay, so they'll just do that. I went, oh, good, okay, so I can go out tonight and try and see Les Paul. So I turned up, and I had no idea that this show sells out for months in advance. Uh-huh. So I got to the front door with my guitar, and they said, yeah, it's sold out tonight. And I just said, as a joke, I'm one of the guest artists. And they said, oh, okay. And they took me downstairs backstage.
No way.
And ended up doing 2 shows that night with Les Paul. Which was insane.
Best. Man, what's that like?
Yeah.
What's that like?
That was a trip.
Yeah.
That was just, just being on stage with that sort of legend. And I'm definitely familiar with his music as much as I am with his inventing.
Okay. Oh, cool.
From like the Les Paul log to those sort of things, but also like his contribution to multi-track recording, sort of the inventing of tape delay, and then getting into like all the things we can actually do now with pedals, like double timing up the octave, so it sounds like you're playing double speed and all that. So, I don't remember much about it. I remember talking to Les about a lot of different things like pickups and that, and the couple of things I did get away from it was Les was, before he went on stage and called me up, he just said, remember, no one cares about how good you play guitar. This is a show. So put on a show for the people.
Okay.
And that was really amazing. Yep. And then second of all, it just sort of, I was at a stage, mid-20s where I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to grow up and get a real job and, move on from this. But that night was a real turn in me coming back to Australia and really actually sort of upping things and taking it actually more seriously.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah.
That's the best. That's the best story ever.
Yeah. So, good. And that was just from going to hang out in the guitar store because I didn't know what else to do.
There you go. Far out. That's so cool. So cool. All right, man. Well, man, your new album's out. We've mentioned it a couple of times. We should talk about this because it's such a great record. I was so happy to hear from you and really appreciated the sneaky pre-release listen and felt special, man. And it's great. So, what's the process? Because this is probably your first solo album in around 4 years. Although I know you did some collaboration stuff as well. Yeah, it is. It wasn't meant to take that long. It was actually meant to be out in 2016. Yeah. And we'd done some sessions for it, but then not long after, I broke my arm. Okay.
In a mountain biking accident.
That's not cool.
So it sort of, put me back for a while, just getting sort of back to where I needed to be.
Okay.
And then the guys on the album, so the album's a trio record.
Yeah.
Essentially. But they are also so insanely busy that it was really hard to coordinate recording it after that. So the drummer on the album is Dom Borjastowski, who who's from Newcastle as well. I started playing with him, I think, when he was about 19.
Okay.
And we just started doing predominantly duo stuff together.
Okay. Cool.
And we just sort of developed this just this style and this way of playing and playing off each other, just from doing local gigs predominantly. We did a little bit of touring in Australia, but it was predominantly just these little corner of the bar gigs that just turned into hundreds of people turning up all the time for them.
Very cool.
And then, fantastically for him, he's developed into one of the finest drummers, I think, in the world. And he's now the drummer in Gang of Youths.
Okay.
And has been for, 3 or 4 years now. So he's off touring the world with them. Mm-hmm. And especially last year, he wasn't in Australia very often. So that presented some challenges. And then my bass player is one of my best friends, and we grew up playing together.
Okay.
His name's Mitch Cairns. So he grew up in Newcastle as well. He's now based in Melbourne. And he's the bass player and producer for Russell Morris.
Okay.
And for Leo Sayer.
Yep.
And so he's constantly on the road as well and been working in the studio. So just juggling all that and getting it together was a bit of a mission. But over the last few years, despite all of our touring and crazy stuff, we've managed to do like maybe 3 or 4 shows together a year. Okay. So which doesn't sound like much, but for us it was enough to really develop, I think, something really special. So nice. It was really important for me to capture those guys on this record.
Fantastic. Oh man, I love the rhythm section. I don't even like using that term because there's such great interplay. It just sounds like the three of you are.
Yeah, like those guys are just amazing. So, and we've, sort of over the time developed this, which happens in quite a few of the songs on the record, where like it is a guitar solo, but there's so much going on from everyone else, and like calling and answering and responses, and it really becomes a band solo. So that's been really fun, just sort of developing that and working it out, and sort of channeling it into an album as well, which was a bit more of the challenge, from going from at gigs playing these songs for 10, 15 minutes to sort of condensing them down to the 3 to 5 minutes for a record.
Yeah, right. When you talk about band solo, that the song Fight, especially like the second half of that tune, is great, the way you guys are.
Yeah, I guess that's, so that one does have a guitar solo, and then it does go into a drum and bass solo, but the second part of it is sort of this whole thing where I start stabbing chords. I think in my head it's almost more like a horn line than a guitar line, and then Dom will play drums off that, and then Mitch just follows and sort of weaves everything together in the middle on the bass. So it's really cool, and don't know what else to say about it. It's just pulling that all together for the album was just a little bit tricky as far as everyone's time goes to make it work.
And like Les Paul, he broke his arm too, so you know.
Yeah, well, that's how it is.
When I saw you play at Lead Belly, and I'd heard your solo albums, but when I heard you at Lead Belly last year, I thought, man, this guy's got all the time in the world, like, And all great musicians have that. They never seem in a rush, even though they might be pulling off stupendously death-defying chops. But you can do that. You can definitely do that. But at the same time, you had a lot of... You really just took your time to build your grooves and things, and I love that. And you seem to have translated that into the band setting as well, and in your writing. Is that something you're conscious of?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's... and actually, a lot of it came from breaking my arm that a little while ago, because that really slowed me up. And not just... It was immediately, because actually the week after I broke my arm, I had to tour Europe.
Okay.
And so, well, it wasn't I should clarify, it was a fracture. So it wasn't actually, the bones weren't completely displaced.
Sure.
I was in a lot of pain outside of that. My wrist could barely turn over into the position to hold a guitar. Mm-hmm. Actually, I had to teach at the University of Newcastle the next day after I broke my arm, and I was holding my guitar like a cello.
Oh, wow.
To teach a couple of things.
Oh, man. What's wrong with the teacher today? I don't know if have you mentioned, was it your right or left arm? It was my left. Okay. So
yeah, so
I mean,
my
hand. Either way, it's bad, isn't it? But yeah, left arm. That's pretty busy.
But yeah, so having to go out and play while I was in sort of severe pain really changed my set, and also changed some songs, because I could play, but it was, certain things were painful or stressful. So a lot of the flashy, fast stuff sort of went, especially for those shows. And then it was focusing more on these other songs, and I just didn't think it would go very well anyway. And I found that people were responding to the music better, and actually I was like, I like playing this better than trying to cram everything in and shred and show everything I can do in every song. So it did focus things, more back into the song and more back into sort of the bare minimum of what it could be. And so, and then translating that, especially from someone that does perform solo a lot, and then letting go of a lot of those duties for a trio, it gives me this ability to, the way I think about separate parts is that a lot on the album I've got a melody and almost a rhythm part while the bass player is going, but they never really happen at the same time. I'm not really playing multiple parts. It just works into this picture that seems bigger than it really is.
Yeah. I think Home, like the first track on the album, might be a good example of that, because you've got your melody, you're kind of responding with some chordal stuff.
Yeah, exactly, because that's a funny little song. Like, that was written because I just kept playing over this weird melody line, which sort of, for the theorists out there, it's sort of like clashing sevenths and 13s in the melody, and it's 4 notes. So that whole melody is just that repeated. And I was writing it the afternoon of the show, and I just went, we don't really have much of a blues in the set anymore. So I kind of just put that melody over a blues progression, and then I kept expanding on substituting chords through the blues progression. So it ends up that it's this 24-bar blues.
Nice.
And so there is a lot of space, because it's just this melody that just repeats. So the only way you can hear that the chords change is if I actually manage to play the chords as well and fit them in all the space. So, so that ends up just being a really fun song to play and a great one to have guests come and play on as well, because the chords are not your standard blues progression, but you can just sort of shred a blues over it as well. Yeah.
Nice. There's some great overdubs on the record. They're very subtle and tastefully done for the most part. There were some really obvious ones I'll get to, but so again, if we can stick on the track, Home, it's a beautiful tremolo going on. What are you using for that?
On that, I just had an acoustic guitar and trem in the background. I think I sort of wanted a little bit more of a bed to play on, but I didn't really want to get a keyboard player in. So I really wanted to try and create sounds that were like more keyboard sort of sound out of the guitar. So I think, on that song, it's just the Strymon Flint being a trem. And just really simple sort of voicings and parts, close voicing. So it sort of sounds almost like someone playing Rhodes more rather than a guitar trem going on. And it's similar with the guitar part, the acoustic guitar part in that. I think I used my fan fret Traugott acoustic guitar, which part of the whole fan fret thing as well is that every note is really clear and it almost sounds like a piano. And so really, except for right at the end of the song, like I didn't strum the acoustic guitar like you normally would. I sort of just finger picked out the chord voicings again, the way someone might just play them on a piano and sustain them out.
Nice. Hey, funny you mentioned that keyboard sort of approach. One of the tracks later in the album, it might be Lawn. I can't. The name.
Yeah, probably that.
The start of Lawn. You're clawing these clusters of chords. Is that? Have I got the right name?
Yeah, it might be that. There's definitely a part later in that where it's like I think that's the Flint again, actually, a harmonic trem, and they're very close voicing. So some people sort of think it's almost like an organ. Sort of going in the background, but it's something I learnt from Charlie Hunter years ago through his stuff, where he uses the rotary speaker on the guitar side, and just how you attack the notes, like with a real lack of dynamics in a way. Because it's like an organ where it doesn't have dynamics unless you actually hold the volume pedal. So you just sort of attack it and you play all the notes at the same time, which is a bit un-guitar-like as well. There's no flamming of the notes, so you just, by finger picking it, you get that real organ sort of sound.
I mean, the evenness of it, that held me, because it's obviously, to me, it's obviously a guitar, but that you're just hitting each voice evenly, which sounds simple in theory, but in practice, especially a fingerstyle player, you're often used to popping certain notes out to.
I think really something cool. I worked on a lot for a while, just really approaching, and it was definitely with that sort of rotary speaker sort of sound, and even or using a chorus on things, where it was one thing to just turn the effect on, and it was like, oh, it sounds like an organ, but it sort of really didn't sound like an organ until you actually approached it that way and actually started playing the voicings the way a keyboard player would, and that's actually achieved more of the effect.
While I'm talking about Lawn, when we're talking about subtle overdubs, this was not one of those tracks.
That doesn't have subtle overdubs.
Well, at the end, anyway, there's these crazy aliens going on. How are you producing that?
That sort of. I think there's quite a few overdubs. I went a bit stupid on that.
Oh man, it's fun. I loved it.
Yeah, there's fuzz, salt. There's by the end of the solo section, I think there's maybe 5 or 6 actual solos.
Yeah, cool.
Sort of all going on in the background with fuzzes. Some are actually similar to that Les Paul thing we were talking about there, the Strymon timeline loop. I've looped something and then played it in double speed.
Okay, yeah, cool.
So it's up the octave, playing way faster than I could ever play. And then there's sustained delay things as well, like tape delays. So holding those out with repeat, so they're feeding back on themselves and sweeping through those to create those sort of just crazy sounds in the background, which is a lot of what I actually 2 years ago I was doing it live a lot by just looping multiple solos randomly just to create intensity, once again, without actually having to shred. Yep. So I didn't have to worry about trying to play really fast. I just would loop something and then play it again and then double speed that so it was going a million miles an hour. And then while all that was going, I'd trigger a tape delay and sustain that and then just go woo, like using the time control.
Nice. That's fun.
Just to create like sort of these quasi like, you know, electronic dance music sort of sweeps as well.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Good times.
Mm.
Good times.
Yeah, that was fun to put together. That's fun.
The whole thing, the production's beautiful. I'm going to ask you about the guitars, but the drums, man, they're so warm. What's your benchmark for drums? They're just beautiful tones.
Well, I actually did. Yeah, I did record the album.
Yeah, nice.
So thank you. A lot of that is just Dom. That's just how he sounds.
Nice.
Most of the album is about 4 microphones on the drums. That's it.
Nice.
Like kick, snare,
Beautiful.
2 overheads, predominantly in like a Glyn Johns array, for those in the know. So it's like, instead of it being 2 over the top, it's sort of 1 in front and 1 behind the kick drum.
Okay. Nice.
But yeah, so it just creates this big open sound, and takes up a big expansive part of the mix as well to be able to sort of do that. I think I started working as an engineer and recording stuff in the late 90s.
Okay, yeah.
And it was in those days where you couldn't get multi-channel sound cards.
Okay, yeah.
and things. So from the very start, I think I managed to buy like a Rode NT1. I think they were like $800 or something when I got it.
Yeah.
They were a fortune. And then, so that was my good mic. So to record drums, I would always just usually throw a mic into the bass drum, and then have the NT1 as an overhead. And it was always a compromise. I'm like, one day I'll be able to throw 40 mics on the drums and it'll be awesome. And now that I can do that, I've found it, I've developed such a way of recording drums with that sort of thing that, it just became, that was the sort of, I just stuck with recording things that way.
Yeah, cool.
And it's really nice to just, keep it simple. And especially with a drummer like Dom, who has an amazing balance of the drum kit already.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when a floor tom or a tom needs to stick out, he hits it that way. Yeah. And his cymbals are naturally balanced where they should be instead of being too loud. So it's as much the performer as it is the technique for those sort of things with drums. Yeah,
that's great. It's, really earthy and beautiful. Are you guys tracking? I imagine you're doing a lot of the tracking live as a trio.
Well, this is the secret. Unfortunately for this album, we didn't get to do that.
Okay.
With everyone's schedules, so a lot of it was actually Dom and I would play live together.
Okay. Yep.
And I would either just be playing guitar or I'd be playing the 7-string Charlie Hunter guitar.
Yeah, yep.
So that has 3 bass strings and 4 guitar strings.
Yeah.
So that's what Dom and I would do duo gigs on, just to give us the feeling of bass and more. So rather than the melodic and solo things, right, more the feel and where we were going to push things.
Okay, yeah.
So so the result is actually nothing on the album was recorded live.
Okay, man, it feels super vibey.
Yeah, so what we had to do, a lot of it was sort of natural. When it was there, then Mitch and I could just play over the top, close our eyes and do it. But then other things, I actually had to go back and chart out what I've played in the solo, especially when Dom and I were playing together, like accents, and even like I would imply different chord voicings as I was just going through, and that was part of it. So there's a couple of songs where the solo sections were really intensely charted out for Mitch and I to be able to grab accents or even just like little ideas. Like I think one was in the song Comfortable. That was actually one of the hardest ones for me to nail, the solo.
Okay. Yep.
And so I charted out all these accents which sort of fall on like the 2 and the 2 beat, and then I think other notes would just like go crazy here for a little while.
Okay.
And then get out there, like play the weirdest thing you possibly can.
Nice.
they were sort of my notes for Mitch and I to follow through on those.
Okay. Nice.
Mm.
Nice. I love that tune, Comfortable. It was, for me, it was a little acid jazz reminiscent.
Yeah.
Took me back to my Ronnie Jordan days.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's got that slams like hip hop beat to it, which was actually just the start. I think I heard a Christian Scott tune. Christian Scott's a New Orleans trumpet player that just had that the glack, that slam thing. And as soon as I had that idea in my head, that whole progression just flowed out.
Nice.
And occasionally we've played it where we solo over the whole progression of the song, and it makes it quite complex. But on this, we just actually went back to A minor to D7, the classic acid jazz jam progression, really.
Dorian all
just
day
to, just to sort of make it a little bit easier to digest. I think my feeling with that song, and especially in calling it Comfortable, is that it is slightly uncomfortable. Actually, a lot of people, depending on their music listening, like just can't get their head around it, which I think is sort of funny.
I felt very comfortable on that track, man.
Yeah, nice.
Interesting. It's interesting with the titles. You've given all the songs one-word titles, and the album is called The Defining of Success. Are those titles your idea of success?
Well, they're not. They're the journey of it, and that's sort of been the idea of that. The idea of success is always changing and developing, and that's why it's called the defining of success, and not the definition of success. And it's something I talk to a lot of people about, definitely like younger artists as well, but even people like my friends who are my age, like late 30s, and just changing and flowing with the world and what's going on. It's always different to work out, when you think you've sort of made it, or if you've still made it, or if you haven't started. And all the titles of the songs sort of came around this period of, for me, working it out for myself, what it is, like, am I happy with what I'm doing in life? And also seeing friends and things go through it as well, and how that sort of affects those. So the one-word titles were really about trying to expand on a really basic theme, and hopefully the idea is that people will look at that and then, develop their own from that one simple word.
Okay.
So, and certainly getting into it, like what love is and what it means to you, and what it necessarily sort of looks like, and home, the concept of home is an endless topic. Habit is a, sort of very personal one, and, that can be sort of anything. And for me, it's written from something very simple and stupid that I just started doing and can't seem to stop.
Okay.
But it's like drives me insane.
Yeah.
And then like Lawn, for example, really is about, for years I lived in this house that had almost like a little property. Like it took an hour to mow the lawn.
Wow.
But there was something really soothing and fun about actually getting around to doing it.
Yeah.
And just like pushing a lawnmower around for an hour or two.
Yeah.
That was like, this is cool.
Guitars. The guitar tones are great, man. Let's work backwards a little bit. There's some slide parts. There's a couple of slide parts.
Yes.
What are you
Okay, so
playing
that
those
is...
on?
Well, that is another guest on the album.
Okay.
So that is a good friend of mine, Jason Lowe, and we did a little EP together actually a couple of years ago. That we put out. Jason also played on my last record, just on a song, and I've produced and worked on his own records for a long time. Jason actually is more of a folk singer, like sort of more in the vein of like Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell. But he has this incredible gift for playing lap slide.
Yeah, nice.
So, and a couple of the first shows we did playing these songs, I just got Jason up for a couple of songs. He was just in town. He hadn't been actually in Newcastle for a while, so I just got him to jump up with us, and they sort of those parts sort of became integral to the song. So I really wanted him to get on it. So. They ended up being recorded really quick in the end. I think they were done in 20 minutes after we finished mixing his new album.
Okay.
Which and yeah, he plays like a Cole Clark, what they called a violap.
Oh, yeah.
That Cole Clark made for a while. But sort of a Weizenborn, sort of a solid body thing.
Hollow body, yeah.
Yeah, with a horseshoe pickup in it. And
okay, cool.
I think I just had him playing into my old Mesa Boogie.
Okay, nice.
Mark II.
Man, sounds great.
Yeah.
I think he takes a little solo. Is it on Habits? Is that where he takes
Habit?
a solo?
He has this great solo, which is just super melodic to the point now where I've sort of learnt his solo.
Oh, nice.
And so when I'm playing it without him, I sort of incorporate his solo just into the chords through there, and it's really become part of the song now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, your own guitar tones are beautiful. They feel so touch responsive. You can feel when you're digging in. There's a little bit of breakup on a lot of the tones. And then when you back off, there's this very soulful, clean kind of thing. How are you getting those tones happening?
Yeah, there's a few different things on the album. So there's only two guitars I played.
Yep.
One is my Nick Huber Rietbergen.
Okay, yep.
So Nick's a builder from Germany, and basically the guitar looks like a giant 335 size Kelly.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And that's basically what it is. Like it's still long scale length, so it's not short scale.
Yeah.
And then I've got in that two Lola gold foil pickups, which are single coil. So when you actually hear it played and you feel it, it feels like a big Kelly to play.
Cool.
But it just has this glorious sound. I'd waited for that guitar for like 7 years, and I was really scared to get it. But then when I did finally get it, was everything I sort of dreamed it would be. Wow. So it's on half the record, and then the other half is a thin line telly that I built from parts. So it's got an MJT thin line body. The neck is a solid Indian rosewood warm-off neck. So one piece, but Indian rosewood. And probably the little secret in it is it's got a Seymour Duncan Firebird pickup in the neck position, which is actually super glued to slabs of rosewood again that are super glued to the body because I accidentally broke the tabs off the pickup installing it, and I wanted it to work. So that's my little tonal secret.
Nice.
Super gluing the pickup into the guitar.
Kids, That's how you get the Adam Miller sound.
Yeah, so those two guitars have really been my mainstay for quite a while now.
Okay.
And then I guess just slight variations on a Telecaster.
Yeah, okay.
And then the amps used on the album, I used 2 amps. I used my Two-Rock Classic Reverb signature on everything but, let me think, it was Drugs and Sleep, which I used a 60s Fender Vibrachamp on.
Okay, and they're both super clean kind of tones, aren't they?
The Vibrachamp?
Yeah.
No, actually, they're pretty dirty.
Okay.
They're just a little gritty. They're a bit ugly.
Maybe I'll go back to front. I think Bits of Drugs sounded clean to me, but perhaps...
I think it does, but by the time it gets through, it's a bit gross.
Okay.
Which is what I like about that little amp. It's it's not like the Tweed Champ that barks straight away. It's it's got this guise that it's clean, and then it sort of turns to grossness if you just push it a little bit harder, especially with my guitars that have slightly hotter pickups than like your traditional tellies, I guess. So, so those were basically just, I think the Strymon Flint reverb in front of that, and that was it for those 2 songs. The Two-Rock rig was a little bit more, just a couple of different overdrives depending on the song.
Okay.
There are a few songs that are just straight clean, like maybe Most of Love, except I switch on a Vemoram Jan Ray.
Oh, okay, nice.
For a bit of overdrive in that one. Yeah. Comfortable is definitely just all the Two-Rock clean.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't record very loud. I find I'd never really play that loud. Well, I think I am pretty loud, but, it's not like I'm cranking amps to 12 o'clock on the master volume. Like the master volume on my amp is actually like, and even at shows, is only ever really around 9 o'clock.
Okay, yeah.
So, or maybe less. So I recorded the album at that volume as well. I think because I'm just used to that volume. As soon as I turn it up more, it actually feels too intense to me.
Okay.
So I had to use, like the Two-Rock breaks up just a little bit in the front end if I play a little bit harder, but a lot of the touch-sensitive stuff came from this pedal called the Nordveng #1 overdrive.
Okay.
Made in, I can't think of where it's made now. A guy, Henrik Nordveng. It's in Europe. I've lost the name. Yeah, I'll work it out.
That's all cool. I guess with the volume thing too, though, once you push your tube amp a bit, you're getting more compression, which a lot of people like. But for you, to my ear anyway, hearing the record, it sounds like it's such a big deal for you to be able to really play the amp with your touch. Yeah, and look, that is the whole Two-Rock / Dumble thing. That is really where they win, is that they have this incredible sort of compression all the time to them. It's not obvious, but there's something about the way that when you play a note that it responds back that I really haven't found in any other amp design, I would say. Like there's a few different companies that can make it, and obviously I have a long history with Two-Rock, and my current amp is unbelievable. But it's just, that feel is always there, and it's so beautifully responsive and so much sustain. Like that sometimes you would think that there's like crazy amounts of overdrive on, but it's not. It's really incredible. Awesome. Man, when you're touring, what will you do for gear? You're probably limited in some ways as to what you can lug around. Internationally,
I'm definitely struggle for gear a bit. I have a Two-Rock that lives in LA.
Okay.
I have Two-Rocker in Northern California, so I can usually get some things from them.
Okay. Yeah.
Pending time as well for me, of how much time in between things. On the road, for an electric guitar sound, I'm basically touring with the Flint for reverb and a trem, just so I've sort of got those sort of consistent things. and I use an Ethos Clean preamp.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Which is another sort of Dumble simulator pedal, I guess.
True. So are you running that direct to a PA?
Yeah, it's been sort of a little magic box of,
nice.
And especially when I'm playing solo, it's like that can go direct to PA. It can go into the effects loop of another guitar amp.
Yep, sure.
And sort of have still that preamp sound, but maybe with a tube power amp still and speaker.
Yep.
It can go straight into another amp and just sort of make it better. If the amp I've got's pretty good, there's a switch that turns it sort of into an overdrive pedal then.
Okay,
so
nice.
It's my little get out of jail free card.
Very cool.
Yeah, I just ordered one. I saw a couple of videos online and just went, I need something. I might as well order it and see how it goes. And I've been actually pretty surprised with that.
That's cool.
Yeah. It definitely makes my electric guitar playing feasible live now. Oh, and yeah, no matter where I go, I can sort of pull those sounds.
I reckon you would sound great even just plugged into a Gorilla practice amp, but I get
I
what
love
you mean
Gorilla
about
practice amps.
NAMM 2019.
Yeah, it's the crazy thing about tone and all those things is you can definitely get super excited about it and listening to things, and we're all driven by it.
Yeah.
But I know I end up sort of sounding the same through everything. But 90% of why I would play through certain things is for me. It's all my comfort. I'm not really thinking about how it sounds to other people.
Sure.
It's all about and especially for me, because I do play with a lot of bottom end, and I think that comes from playing solo, of wanting to reproduce things. It probably annoys a lot of the bass players I play with, but I like when I hit my low E for it to be fat and round and huge. Mm-hmm. So, I always sort of need some sort of amplification or preamp that can do that for me.
Yeah, sure. What about guitars? I saw a hilarious photo you posted for a recent overseas trip. I can't remember where you were going, but you had a guitar. Essentially, you'd unscrewed a neck and you were trying to shove the body and the neck into a suitcase. And
yes, yeah. Joys of flying Jetstar internationally.
Okay. What are you going to do? Like, say tomorrow you head off to the States. What are you going to do for a guitar?
It always varies, actually, depending on who I'm flying with and what my shows are. This next trip is a solo performance, and it's at a guitar festival and my performance is actually for a guitar builder named Michael Greenfield from Canada, who builds absolutely exquisite acoustic guitars. They're used by Andy McKee. He's the guy that is probably the biggest flyer of Michael's flag, but Keith Richards has bought them, and who's the Men at Work guy? I've just lost his name.
Colin Hay.
Colin Hay has been touring with one of his guitars quite a bit as well.
Nice.
So I'm just playing his guitars at that. And they won't have pickups or anything in them, so they're on to microphones.
Okay.
So that'll be totally exposed for that.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But actually for this trip I'll take an archtop guitar made by Ryan Thorell in Utah.
Okay.
Which was this little, it's a 15-inch archtop, which is pretty small for archtop guitars. Like when you think of the classic Gibsons and things are out at 17 inches.
Yep.
And it doesn't have F-holes either. It has an oval hole more in the place where you would have an acoustic guitar sound. So the cool thing about that guitar is we designed it to sort of have a little bit more bass and acoustic response than most archtops do.
Okay.
So it's a pretty funky sounding acoustic guitar that I can do radio interviews on and, magazine interviews and that sort of thing, playing in front of people. And it's got a magnetic pickup. And so with that pickup, I can sort of plug into any amp. I can go direct to PA.
Okay. Cool.
Actually, it's also got a condenser mic inside as well. It's got a DPA condenser. So you can pull a really beautiful sort of acoustic sound out of it and then unplug that and then plug into a tube amp and start shredding blues on it. So it's a really cool guitar to take around when I can only take one, and I sort of have multiple things to do. And that's what that guitar was sort of designed for.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Sounds good, man. Sounds awesome.
Mm.
What's the best way for people to keep up with you? Because you are everywhere. Like you said,
Yeah.
first time we spoke was in Japan. Then we met at
Yes.
Newtown. Bumped
Yep.
into you at Chatswood.
Yep.
And I was going to
It's
speak to you a couple of weeks ago, but you're in Vietnam.
yeah. It's sort of just been a little bit chaos. Like, the website's always the easiest place to start, which is just adammiller.com.au.
Okay. Yep, nice.
And then from there, like, all the social media
stuff,
vibes are from there.
Yeah, cool.
You know, the Instagram and the Facebook. The
Yeah.
Instagram's pretty fun still.
Yeah,
I'm not
Instagram's
sure
cool.
I'm not sure how excited I still am about people making careers out of 1 minute videos.
Yes.
But at least there's something happening, and there's music, and there's definitely always people pushing the extremes of what you can do on a guitar, or what's sort of possible, and doing it in that format and the access to it. So I do like Instagram. I don't have the patience to put the time into it that I really want, but it's a cool thing that I think will change a lot of the way we interpret music and do things and see artists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wait, when you say interpret music, what do you mean by that?
Well, I guess this is possibly a whole other discussion.
Yeah, probably.
And especially because I do still teach at a university, so I'm lecturing in jazz and contemporary guitar.
Yeah.
So a lot of my students are, 18, 19, just out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them have never seen a band in real life.
Wow.
They've never seen anyone actually perform music.
Yeah.
Because even, I guess, just, the way things have changed, like there's less bands in the corner of bars and pubs these days than there were, like, when I was that age 20 years ago. So the way they take on music and consume music is totally different, and the way they find it. And, the amount of people that will learn, like, these just 1 minute clips from Instagram. And, like, they're awesome, but they never actually, like, they don't actually find the connect to go on and learn the whole song, or even find possibly that it is a whole song somewhere else.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Or it isn't a whole song. It actually is just this 1 minute composition for Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, the radio hit had to be, 3 minutes?
Yeah.
3 minutes 15 or 2 minutes 45 seconds. It's like the new hit now is 59 seconds.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If it's sort of actually it's a pretty cool idea, actually. I've often thought about doing an album where everything goes for 59 seconds.
Yeah.
I think it'd be pretty awesome.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
A 10-minute 10-minute album with 10 tracks.
Yeah.
Well, that covers a couple of ideas. There's the Ramones, of course, where you could play their whole catalogue in, at a half-hour gig, and then 20th century classical composers doing miniatures. It's not totally unheard of what you're talking about. That could be cool.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. It depends where you're at, and especially when we're talking about earlier about space and that sort of thing in music. It's really hard to create space in a 1 minute Instagram clip.
Yeah, true. How do you develop the phrasing?
Yeah, so that's always been like my battle with it. Yeah. I have these two. I find it really fascinating that people can just keep coming up with these 1 minute ideas, but at the same time, like, I just want to play these days, like, things that are really beautiful that 1 minute probably isn't enough to really soak into it. But that's what I mean. I think it's having more of an effect on the way people consume music and see music and listen to music than I think people actually realise at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. I mean, the very nature of just scrolling through your phone or scrolling through your app doesn't lend itself to stop and listen to much more than a minute in some ways.
No, that's exactly right.
You're not looking for something deep and meaty.
Yeah, and that's a habit in itself, I would say. So track 4 on the album.
Track 4 on the album. The new album called The Defining of Success, available on all these electronic outcomes. But you can actually buy CDs and vinyl as well.
You can buy CDs. You can pre-order vinyl, which will be back in a couple of months because that takes a while to actually aggregate into existence.
Sure.
But
Very cool, very cool. Well, Adam, thanks heaps. It's been great catching up again and getting stuck into your new record and all the other cool stuff you've been up to, man. Yeah,
thanks so much for your time, Matt. Digging the program. I keep finding things I didn't know about, so that's awesome.
Cool. Oh, thanks, man. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
but awesome work. Seriously, dude. Like, there's just little things that I get through the podcast that are like, even like Chris Camzalis releasing something that I never saw anywhere else.
Oh, nice. Oh, thanks so much. Man, I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
All right.
Thanks, man. Take care. I'm going to get packing.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Thanks.
See ya.
Catch you later then. All right, there you go. My conversation with Adam Miller, who is now rushing off to find a guitar-sized suitcase to chuck some stuff in, including a guitar. The album is so highly recommended, so all those avenues to check it out we spoke about, I encourage you to do so. The track you're hearing now is Comfortable. We spoke about that during the interview. I love this tune. And my thanks to Adam for giving me permission to run some excerpts of the songs throughout the podcast today. Remember, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram, and it's a huge help to us if you're enjoying the interviews. Why not share them through your social media networks? Put up a link or something. It really helps us get the word out that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So that's very, very much appreciated. We're also on Patreon if you'd like to support us financially and help us with our running costs as well. That's, of course, appreciated as well. Thank you so much for joining me. As I said at the start of the show, 2 years, it's been awesome. And great privilege to bring these interviews to you. All right, my name's Matt Wakeling. You've been listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. We'll catch you next time. Bye now.